Alright, welcome back to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment, a YouTube channel dedicated to advanced tactical use of troops in Bannerlord. Today we're going to be discussing a little something different, but we'll also have a battle that includes some tactical instructions as well. Today I'd like to talk about the brother and the sister of tactics, so to speak. Tactics is generally referred to as the movement and formations of troops on the battlefield, where strategy has to do with pre-battlefield movement. In other words, coordinating your different armies to meet so that you have them ready to go on the battlefield and preferably a favorably position. Right? You want to align it so that you have either the advantage or more troops or some kind of advantage using your strategy. That also includes having troops stored at garrisons in certain locations so that you can restock your army to make sure that you have a competitive force. The other component I want to talk about a little bit today is logistics. And logistics are incorporated into Bannerlord. The primary way they're incorporated is in food and movement. So I'm going to focus here a bit on the lower right corner. It's what's called your party speed. And it has all these numbers in there. It's a little bit bewildering if you've never seen it before. You don't have to break down every single one of these, but we're gonna talk about this for a minute or two here before we start moving. So the base size of your army there at the very top, that has to do with how many troops are in your force, right? The larger your force, the lower that number is. All right, it's 2.07. And then you can see that number is affected by a bunch of different variables until you get to the bottom where it gives you your total party speed, right? That's the speed at which my army moves, right? It's moving at 2.7. Now that includes things like, we're in the forest. There's small little bonuses you're getting from some of the perks under your character menu. Your scouting skill affects this, even the game difficulty, right? Right now I've got the game difficulty on the hardest, so I'm not getting any movement bonus, right? You could make yourself faster, but we don't need to do that today because we're going to use our brain. So what we're going to do is effectively reduce the size of our army, and what that will do is that will dramatically increase that top number, the base, and it's a little bit of a gimmick, but there is a real-life parallel to this. What we're going to do is we're just going to simply dismiss some of these people from our army, right, until it's considerably reduced in size. Now we'll look again at the party speed. You can see right away it updated, right? You can see the base numbers now 2.83. If you don't remember, it was like 2.01, I think. So that just went up dramatically by removing troops. Now, there's a couple other things that changed that you may not have noticed. Suddenly we are overburdened. I think it's the sixth one down there. It says minus 0.13. And then two below that, it says herding, minus 0.31. Now, Tailworlds does a brutal job explaining effectively what all this means. You might be playing with a herding penalty for 6 months and just totally furious that your fucking army moves so slow, cracking the whip. But the reality is that these things can be, you can fix this if you know what it means. So overburdened, that has to do with your inventory, right? When you go to your inventory, you can look up here in the top, and of course it's highlighted in red and flashing, right? They're trying to tell us that we have too much inventory, right? We're carrying 47 whatever thousand pounds, and we only have the capacity to carry 40,000, right? So we've got extra grain here. I often carry extra food and other things that are weighing our party down, right? So that's the herding component. The other one is, that's the overburden component. The other component is under herding, right? That is, what that means is you have too many horses. It can mean you also have lots of cows and pigs. Because they effectively count. You can think of it like a cattle rancher driving hundreds of cows and pigs. It slows you down, right? You have to basically go as slow as the slowest unit of your army. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this local castle and we're going to dump some of those horses off and some of that excess food. Now again, we're moving fast 3.9, but you're saying, well, if your purpose is to go to this castle or a city to defend, rather, you're not gonna. Don't you need a bigger army to do that? And the answer to that is very simply yes. But we're going to be traveling separately. You can think of this as like a bunch of friends meeting at a resort for the weekend, but instead of you trying to all pile into a van, you know, you're all taking separate cars. And while that maybe is not as efficient gas-wise, it's much faster for you guys to do that than to try to sort out all jamming into a van and who sits where and cramming all your gear into one vehicle, right? So we're going to be moving these armies separately. Right away, I'm going here and I'm going to re-add all these parties to my group. And again, that might seem very counterintuitive because I just dismissed them, right? They're all wondering what the hell just happened, if they did something wrong in the last battle. I just added them and dismissed them, right? They're probably wondering if their general's not cracked a little bit. Now you notice these stars here. If you've never seen this before, these parties are all they're disorganized. They've lost the head of the snake, and it's you know, these guys are wondering where their rations are while their horses just took off, and so they're moving slower. Now that's temporary. I think it's a 6-hour, maybe it's an 8-hour game time disorganized state, so they're moving slower temporarily, but they will get back up to speed. Meanwhile, we're cruising, right? We're moving at 3.9, and if you watch, we're going to be able to increase that even more, because again, the net purpose of what we're doing is to try to get to this siege before the enemy really lays a heavy hand on it, right? So we're going to our local castle here. We're going to open the stash. Now we're going to dump this grain, right? Yeah, it's a good opportunity to show you as well. This is one of my resupply castles. I frequently dump grain here. I collect it, you know, from cities, from battles, and I'm just going to dump some of my supplies here, right? Unless this castle gets taken, this grain, this fish, meat. We got some beer here for the troops, right? They need beer. All of that will stay there until I come by and pick it up later on. And I'll talk a little bit about why that's valuable as well. But we still have a herding penalty, right? 0.31 negative, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave horses here, right? It's down to 0.11, right? So we're going to leave a few more. We're just going to take some of the horses that we have, stable them in this nice castle, and there's two benefits. The first is our herding penalty, you can see, is now gone, right? So is our overburdened penalty. And our speed, I think at the beginning we were going 2.7 or something like that. We're up to almost 4.2. The other advantage now is, of course, all this food and horses is stashed in this castle. And there's multiple advantages to that. The very first one is if I ever need more horses, more food, say one of my local cities, I need more food, I can simply take it from this castle. You know, I might be encumbered, but drag a bunch of food over there, dump it on the peasants. You know, they can have a big harvest feast, so to speak, and that will improve the food stocks in the city. You can see right now the food stocks in the city are more than adequate. They have 700, if you can see it up there. So they don't need it right now, but if a city gets besieged for a while, the enemy's, you know, has surrounded it and invested a siege, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in, the peasants really start to suffer. The food starts to drop, and the other major problem for you is that the garrison itself, not the militia, but the garrison, right? You see there's a huge garrison here at Epicrotia. They will start to turn up as injured, right? The more days that the siege goes on without food, those troops will start to starve, right? And they will be effectively out of the battle. So when that happens, it's really important to bring in a huge infusion of food. You feed all the starving soldiers. Everybody thinks you're a fucking hero, and you go about your way, right? So I'm not actually going to be going to Epicrotia. I don't need to actually drop off food. They're fine, but I wanted to show you that we're using this castle right next to it as effectively a food factory. Now, Epicrotia itself has a food stash as well. I keep food there. But that 700 food, if I dumped all my food on Epicrotia right now, they would immediately start consuming it. You'd have obese, you'd have giant obese serfs not doing any work, right, because they ate 9 loaves of bread every day. And what the net effect of that is that food stock number would go way up. It would max 700, just like you see it there. And then all of the excess, what that does is it starts to increase the prosperity, that top number there. It starts to increase that number even more. Now, that seems like a good thing, right? You want to increase that prosperity, except the fact that more prosperity, effectively, you can think of it as more people living in the city. This is my capital. It's got a huge amount of people already living there, and they're fat and happy. But if you shove a huge amount of food in there, what'll happen is that prosperity will start to go way up because they have lots of food, and then they will start to consume that food rapidly. You know, these obese peasants working 1 hour a day and not doing any work for you, they will start to eat all your bread. Your food stocks will start to plummet, and they'll actually get to the point where they starve, right? That's why they're peasants, and I'm the Lord. They don't know any better. They're just going to eat everything in sight until they're starving. They don't have the discipline, I guess. So you want to store food. That's a long way of saying you want to store food in your local castle, because that way you're sort of able to withhold the peasants from just eating every piece of bread left on the buffet table and bringing bread to them when they really need it, right? You don't want to overfeed them and have a population boom and then have a population crash, right? So continuing on with our speed here, you can see, we are flying 4.2, right? Now our units are falling behind us, but not by much, right? They are individually going to be moving fast themselves, right? It's 3.5 right now because it's at dark. But watch as the daylight starts to pop up. You know, their numbers will go from the 3s or high 2s to, if not my speed, almost the same speed, right? 3.6, 4.2, right? So now some of these units, you know, they're going through a forest, that affects them. But some of these units that are now following me are moving basically the same speed I am, 4.2, 4.2. So this is a perfect time to stop it. These troops are all moving at the same speed I am, right? Now if we move together, we'd be moving like 2.8, 2.9 speed, right? The units down there. And it would take us much longer to get to this castle. I've got this other army down here. They're going to be too far away to help. It's going to be up to our group here to confront whatever's at this city, right? If you did it the traditional way and broke up your army, it would take you at least an extra day, and that might be the difference between saving the city or not, right? Time is of the essence when you're responding in a strategic manner, right? Speed is lethal both to the enemy or to you if you're mismanaging your army, right? So we're now flying and moving fast. I'm going to continue walking there as I sort of explain this. You know, again, it kind of seems like an illusion or a trick, but there is a historical parallel to this. The great war leader Napoleon in the Napoleonic Wars was famous for his speed. So was Alexander the Great. It was one of the reasons they consistently defeated their enemies, was that they were incredibly good at not just warfare, but the pre-warfare, the logistics and the strategic side of warfare. Right? Alexander was famous for having his troops carry food in a manner that they were faster. And what Napoleon did, we're failing quests up here. What Napoleon did is he perfected what's called the corps system. And there's a parallel here to Bannerlord. A corps system was basically the division of armies into smaller armies, right? Dividing a huge army just like we did into a smaller army, or a series of armies just like this. And in real life, effectively how it works is armies eat food, right? They march through an area, and especially if you had like 20 or 30,000 soldiers, they're eating all the food, right? They're marching through towns, and they're just buying everything in the market they can. If there's not enough food in the market, they go take it from people or whatever they have to do to requisition food. And that process, you can't do that. If your army's 200,000 and you try to do that, there's simply not enough food to take. So Napoleon was spread his army out. They'd be divided over a 50 or 60 mile arc. And as he started to learn where the threat was, he would then reconverge those armies to meet the threat altogether, right? Because if we come in here with our 600 troops, I don't know how many enemies this is. It seems like the whole fucking realm. And there's even Battanian troops that seem like they're waiting to attack. This is happening more and more in my campaign because everybody is at war with me. But if I came in here by myself, just like Napoleon's force, I would not be successful. But these troops are moving really fast, right behind me, and I'm simply going to be able to gather up my forces and concentrate for an attack where it would normally not be possible. Right? My guys would still be way back here. They're already attacking the castle, and it might fall before I could actually get my troops there to respond to defend. Now I want to gather them up here, right? The battle's about to start. You can hear the music's firing up, things are starting to get dramatic. I'm gathering up my force, and again, my speed just dropped considerably, right? Now I'm down to not even 3, but that whole distance we traveled really fast, lightning fast. Napoleon was able to do that. I've got deserters, of course. I don't know why anybody would desert my army. I would stick to it to the bitter end. I mean, we kill everybody, right? But Napoleon was able to do that, and we're emulating Napoleon here. We're using advanced logistical and strategic maneuvers to come to grips with the enemy in a favorable way as fast as possible. Right? Like all our battles, we're going to run at 50% player damage. I don't know how many this is. We're probably outnumbered. We've got a small strategical edge here. So this is probably a battle we're going to mangle the enemy, right? I mean, ordinarily, even when we're outnumbered, we're doing really well against the enemy. In this case, of course, we actually outnumber them, right? So into battle we go. Again, I'm running at 50% player damage, and I'm doing that so that you can follow the whole time tactics, so that I don't get dropped by accident by a nasty cavalry couch thrust early in the battle, and then the AI takes over, right? Kind of ruins the whole purpose of the channel here. Alright, so they put us kind of close to the enemy, and whenever that happens, I like to pull back a little bit. I like to assess, I like to see what the enemy's doing. You can actually see they are, at least the cavalry is aggressively pursuing. So something I'll do very early on just to kind of deter that is I'll send both cavalry wings, the 2nd and 3rd cavalry wings, in to charge on them, right? The rest of the troops are following me, but my cavalry is now charging over the hill, and they kind of act as like an intercept for the rest of my forces. I don't need their cavalry charging down my infantry. Right, we're gonna protect our troops. So Marshal Murat from the Napoleonic Wars was also famous for this. Very critical to use your cavalry in more ways than just attacking, right? You're not just going to attack the enemy with your cavalry. They have many value. We're getting shot by some arrows, but they're so far away, this is just of no consequence. Alright, so the enemy is still kind of aggressively pursuing. Quite foolish of them, right? They'd be better off taking a defensive stand. We are going to align our archers on this sort of shallow hill here. I'm going to put my 8th Corps a little bit back this time. In lopsided battles like this is likely to be, I won't use my 8th Corps very aggressively. There's no reason to risk them. I don't need my nobles dying, you know, in a battle where maybe we're going to lose 200 troops, 300 troops, right? So I'm trying to slow it down just a bit. I've got my infantry wings spread out in front of my archers, like you often see me do. My 8th Division is behind us here. I've got my cavalry attacking again. One unit is just kind of barreling towards the enemy to sort of give them a feint attack and slow them down, while the other enemy is pursuing. The other cavalry wing is attacking that cavalry wing. In fact, I'll assign both. That looks like a big tranche of horse archers. We'll send all of our cavalry over there, including the horse archers. Right? We can all just, now all of them can attack the enemy. 8th Corps is a little bit too far back. We're going to drag them down here into this valley. Ordinarily that would feel, you might feel uncomfortable doing that, but my 8th Corps has so many elite troops that this is not really, there's not much danger in this, right? Those guys are going to go down there, and if anybody attacks them, it's going to go badly for the attacker. Yeah, see there, I just got my horse just lost half its health to a nasty spear. Alright, so there's some archery play here. The enemy's cavalry is retreating. They're getting killed. I don't need my cavalry getting overextended, so I pull them back. And at this stage, we're actually enjoying just a nice archery advantage. You see the enemy cavalry is charging my 8th Corps, but watch how little damage there is. There'll be some deaths, but not very many, right? Actually, I don't know if I saw a single death, but these are really hardy troops. And now, at this stage, I'm actually dragging my cavalry right into the enemy cavalry here. This is a deterring attack. I want them to get out of here. That's exactly what they're doing. They're out of here. They've had enough. If guys are holding their shields up, by the way, take their cavalry out. Take their horse out. It's pretty immobilizing for enemy cavalry to have their horses dropped, right? Alright, so that little cavalry skirmish aside, again sending off some cavalry wings to attack their horse archers. finally I'm going to do, and you see me do this a lot, I'm going to use my 3rd Cavalry wing right down here as a big blocking wing. And their sole purpose here is to sort of provide a shield wall for the rest of my troops. Right? The enemy seems pretty static there, right? But we are getting lots of kills, and a lot of times when the enemy starts to take a real beating, they will start to get more aggressive. So as always, we're seeking every single tactical advantage we can. What I'm hoping in this fight is that the battle sort of charges my center off to the right flank, or excuse me, the left flank, the enemy's right. In other words, up there, I'm now positioning archers with a nice shield wall of the 1st Infantry. Right? And the hope is that when the enemy comes in, I'll be able to use a flanking attack on their forces and really deal some severe, savage attacks to them. Right? 3rd Corps there is in a big wall. Here comes the enemy cavalry, and just watch how effective this is. See if I can zoom in for you. You know, a guy or here trickles through, but not very many. Right? Most of them are held back by that cavalry wall. 1st Corps is on that side now with a shield wall. I'm going to bring the 5th Archery Corps up, right? The enemy's starting to move around a little bit, probably trying to adjust to our tactics, but they're obviously not operating with a lot of candle power. It's not really going to matter too much.
Hold your control! Follow me! Cavalry!
Advancing the 8th Corps a little bit here.
Loose formation!
1st Corps is in a nice line, and 6th Corps, that's my skirmishers, we're moving them up as well. Enemy's starting to move here a little bit. I'm going to join my troops on foot, not only because I'm more effective that way, but it's more enjoyable. So we've sent the cavalry, the 2nd Cavalry, across the battlefield now. You can see me sending them way over there. Throw in some javelins. When enemies packed in like that, it's kind of hard to miss with your javelins. I mean, you're still going to miss sometimes, but a lot of those are going to find a mark, and it's going to be lethal. Yeah, just drop their horses. Right? You guys on horse, down you go. This will take some practice for you, but I'm effectively moving all my troops up from a distance, right? We're going to want to come to grips to this enemy force now. I'm pretty sure they're damaged, weakened by all the artillery attacks. So we close in the net, right? They're doing everything they can to pound us with arrows, but it's not going to matter. All the infantry units are sent in here, as well as the 8th Corps. Archery units staying back still. They can harass the incoming archers. And I love to roam behind. You got it. I like to run behind the enemy here and just lay waste, because a lot of them, of course, are focused on the enemy that's in front of them. You can just cut a path through them with your battle axe. Right? It's all green death spam. It's just a total massacre. The enemy's panicked. In real life, this enemy would be running for their life. Right? They'd be in terror. And again, that's their first wave, just totally annihilated. We're continuing with some tactics here, just to be, again, a little bit more surgical. All you see me doing here is effectively moving troops up. We've got the momentum, so we want to continue that momentum. Enemy still has the capacity to do some damage, make some kills. Right at this stage where the battle is over, but we're going to cinch it down.
Infantry! Shields up!
Infantry units coming in on flanking sides, right? The 1st and 6th Infantry are both barreling in. Both cavalry units are told to charge, and it's just a vice, right? The enemy's going to start fleeing here soon. They're really being steamrollered. You know, they're getting a few kills with arrows. One thing you can do to prevent that, you can bring that 3rd Cavalry up in a big shield wall. You'll see these cavalry run up. All they're doing is leading with their shields. They're absorbing arrow hits, and right behind them are your furious infantry divisions, just marching at a furious pace, right? The arrows are suddenly hitting cavalry, they're hitting shields, they're hitting everything except their intended target. You know, meanwhile, your enemies are just starting to wade right through, right? Once they're up there, I can send in my cavalry wings. Yeah, not going to tolerate you guys making me look bad, sorry. A lot of times, you know, I'm going to be focusing on tactics, but when these clown, like, third tier units start to zerg me, yeah, we're gonna get back to killing. Tactically, of course, the battle was over like 5-10 minutes ago once we destroyed their first elite wave. But we kept doing tactics right up till this last attack. Right, we got our troops into position. They're coming in from flanks. You know, we've got our elite 8th division making the big puncture run. In real life, that 8th division. Oh, let's put these guys right in front of me. Not real terrific game design. I hope they understand how immersion breaking that is. In real life, though, you know, having an 8th corps like we do just blitz the enemy would be totally devastating to enemy morale. You'd have these obviously veteran, you know, big bearded savage troops just coming in and laying waste to the enemy. Napoleon's elite corps had a very similar role to our 8th corps, right? We had this, what was called the Old Guard. Most of these guys were extremely hardened, grizzled veterans of 15 or 20 years of war. Most of them had killed many people by, you know, each on their own, had been through really tough wars. And, you know, the enemy, as soon as they saw the Old Guard advancing, there'd probably be fear welling up in their eyes. Losing some forces, it's always inevitable. I mean, you can fight a perfect battle if you do a whole lot of kiting. You know, I've fought battles where against 2,000 troops I lost, 20 troops. But it takes longer, and I'm not going to drag out battles like that just to try to show how badass I am. I'm here to instruct. I'm here to show people some advanced tactics. Granted, I like swinging my battle axe, you know, so you're going to have to endure a little bit of that sometimes, but I'll try to keep enough tactical advice in here that all players, at least I would say intermediate skill and above, can benefit from it. And it's just a savage, just sit down here amongst the thousands of dead bodies of the enemy here and wait for our guys to cheer. Even the song's cheering.
Yeah! Victory!
So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm going to try to include more smaller details, especially pre-battle details that I think players out there can really benefit from. In this case, you know, we showed some of the strategic side and logistical side of a fight. Killing the nobles, I love that. So stay tuned for more. Please subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw. Comment, critique even. I don't mind. If you can't hear it over the music, I want to hear that. I'm still kind of tricking out and figuring out precisely how loud to have everything. But thanks for watching.